Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is the 1 hour chart of silver provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. I've drawn this trend channel here. You can see we're rising in that trend channel, although we're testing the top, but we seem to be rounding up here. The MACD is not reset down to the bottom, but does appear to be turning up. So we're stair-stepping higher, as I pointed out before. We may have a pullback to this 34 level. That seems to be the last breakout point. Oftentimes we get those types of tests. You had one here, although it didn't come all the way down to there. You had one here and it actually went sort of below. So I'm expecting a test of this 34 line at least before we make a move higher. We could move out of this trend channel if we pull out a little bit. You can see that we had a trend channel from the past that we came out of, something like this. So it's possible that we could go into a more accelerated phase. You can see on this one that the MACD is really overbought and hasn't corrected. So we're seeing the same sort of thing in gold. Gold has been stair-stepping higher. You can see gold is very strong here. If we back off to the hourly, you can see the stair-step pattern in gold is very clear. That's the type of thing that you see in a very strong bull market. That has to do with the psychology of the buying. The corrections, when you have corrections and they're met very rapidly by new buyers, that means that you have a very strong market. Gold is looking very, very strong at this point. It wouldn't surprise me at all tomorrow to see a move up in to the 1800 level and even beyond that. So the markets are still looking very strong, although they're overbought on some indicators. But you have to remember about overbought markets. We'll pull out to the daily so I can show you that on gold. You have to remember that with overbought markets, you can see on this rise here, very long rise, markets can stay overbought for quite some time. And gold pretty much stayed overbought for nearly a 2-year period. And even when it had this massive correction, it really didn't get below this price. So don't be deceived by being in an overbought position on the indicators, whether that's the MACD, the stochastics, the Williams R. There's a lot of indicators that are overbought. But when you have a strong bull market, you're not looking for the overbought, you're looking for the oversold, because you want to buy the dips on the rising market. The other chart I want to look at real quick here is the Japanese yen. It's not a real big tick here in the scheme of things. Of course, I've always pointed out this is the Fukushima low, and these were various central bank interventions. What I find interesting is when we come into, say, the 5-minute chart, at the very moment that we had the QE3 announcement, or very close to that time, we had a rapid sell-off in the value of the dollar against the yen, but then apparently we had some sort of, my guess would be, central bank intervention here at this point. Now we had more volume coming in here and here, so we'll have to see if this rally continues. The reason why that's important is because while the euro was selling off, or I'm sorry, while the dollar was selling off against the euro, this is the euro rising, it's doing the opposite. So the dollar was strengthening against the Japanese yen while it was weakening against the euro. If that wouldn't have happened, then this dollar index would have looked a lot uglier than it is. And I think that's probably the reason for the intervention. You can see the dollar index is looking very ugly. If you remember, Greg Manarino has made the call that the dollar is going down from here. It looks like he's right when we get out here to the long term. So if the Japanese yen had not, in my opinion, been intervened in, then we probably would have had a breakdown below this line, and we would have a rapidly falling dollar index. Does that stuff really matter? No, it doesn't really matter, because the dollar index is a basket, and it's a big rig thing anyway, and all the currencies are racing to the bottom against gold, of course, but it does have some psychological import because it is watched by a large number of people. So that's my guess as to why there was the intervention. Let's get over to the questions of the night, and the first one is from Wolf. Hi, Brother John. Thank you very much for everything you do. My question is, what is the total money creation occurring globally? From what I see, from just the U.S., it's almost $2 trillion, and he gives the totals from Operation Twist, etc. But asks, what about Europe money printing, Japanese money printing, Chinese money printing, etc.? Seems to me that no one is reporting on the actual worldwide totals. They focus on either U.S. deficit, QE3, Operation Twist, Europe, but never do you see what the aggregate money creation truly is. Given that gold and silver are measured in annual world production, it doesn't make sense to compare gold and silver prices to U.S. money supply only when it should be on the total worldwide money supply. Now, I agree with that, and I did my recent Office Series video calculating just based upon U.S. money supply, but it's true, if you're looking at world gold and silver production, then you really need to look at world money supply. But then again, you have to remember that we live in a petrodollar world right now, and the vast majority of foreign exchange reserves are in dollars. I think the figure is something like 60 or 70% of all foreign exchange reserves are held in dollars. So the dollar is going to be the place you really want to look at when you're looking at money printing. Also, you have to remember that the Fed has done some secret backdoor bailouts of Europe as well. So the United States is going to be the big player to watch when you're talking about money printing, and then it's going to be Europe next, and probably Japan, and then China. Next question. Please help me understand. This is from IOUHC19. Dear Brother John, please help me understand this. 9/11 was the worst disaster to happen on American soil during our lifetime. On that day, about 3,000 of us died, including 343 firefighters, 23 New York Police Department employees, 37 Port Authority officers. Since that time, we've had the Patriot Act, bank bailouts, TSA, NDAA, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, saber-rattling about Iran and Syria, the housing bubble, bank bailouts, and companies like MF Global operating with impunity. Does it make sense that a 47-story modern skyscraper can collapse at freefall speed after burning for a few hours from an ordinary fire? Does it make sense that a Boeing 757 could slam into a building such as a Pentagon and not show the impact of the engine's wings and tail section? The Pentagon is touted as being one of the most secure buildings in the world, yet there are no videos showing a plane slamming into it, nor are there evidence of wings, tail sections, or engines at impact. Why? Could it be that something other than an airplane hit the Pentagon? The crash at Shanksville, PA is also questionable due to debris from the wreckage being found 8 miles away from the original crash site. I believe we will not have liberty, nor the world will be safe until 911 is reinvestigated with full subpoena powers. A reinvestigation of 911 with full subpoena powers could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that official 911 version may have been bogus. If the official 911 version were debunked, war crimes tribunals would be the logical next step. Please help me understand why good folks like you are not demanding, or at least educating the masses on why a reinvestigation is necessary. Well, I decided to answer this, even though this is my silver channel. I have a channel that's kind of in hiatus right now called Conspiracy Nation, where I've talked about a number of these things. Now, the answer that I'm going to give on this is, of course, anybody who thinks about these things would know that all these facts that have been pointed out, which any of us who've been in this community have heard a million times, they don't add up. And the question is, why? Why did they do this? Why are they doing this? And he's asking, why don't people stand up and demand a reinvestigation? Well, people aren't going to stand up and demand a reinvestigation if they believe the official story. And the vast majority do believe the official story. There's really nothing I can do for you if you can see something with your own eyes, such as a building being taken down with the demolition charges, and yet not believe what you're seeing with your own eyes. There's really nothing I can do for you. And that gets to the main point of what this is all about, and that's going to be mind control. The issue is, are you going to believe an official story? Are you going to believe what public pressure tells you what to believe? Or are you going to believe what your eyes and your mind show you? That's what the battle is about. That's what all real battles in this universe are about, whether they're spiritual or political, about convincing you to believe something that you haven't seen with your own eyes, or something that conflicts with your own thinking. And if you can be convinced to believe against what you've actually seen, then obviously they've won. In my opinion, the vast majority of American people believe the official story. I doubt so much that the vast majority of the world's people believe the official story, but it seems that the vast majority of Americans believe the official story. And apparently, if that's the case, then they're probably going to get what they deserve. Now, we're going to address some of that when we talk about leaving the country. And I've got a new site that I'm going to introduce, but that's my take on that. I'm not going to go further into that because that's not what this site is about. This site is about silver and protecting yourself with physical silver. And the last question, QE and the price of silver. This is from George Silver. Dear Brother John, I'm somewhat puzzled as usual. Most silver blog sites have a fixation about QE, quantitative easing, and the price of silver. There was and is endless speculation as to what would happen to the price of silver when QE was implemented. All pundits said the price would rise and possibly not stop rising. Why should QE be the specific reason for the price to rise? We are told monotonously that silver is held down by manipulation. Surely manipulation is the main factor in the price, not QE. And yet we see only QE really affects the price. QE seems to me to be a fixation in the silver world that is misdirecting us from the real underlying factors in the price of silver. Yes, I couldn't agree with that more. As I've said many times, there's more than enough money in the system right now for the price of silver to go absolutely to the moon. It doesn't even really take that much money to do so. I've covered that in my latest Office series video, but you can do the math yourself with only 750 million ounces being mined. Very questionable as to how much is really above ground right now, and the vast majority of that 750 million ounces is being taken by industry. So the numbers are all there, the math is there for a skyrocketing price of silver. But again, back to the last question we just talked about. The question is, do people believe? The facts are already there, but if people don't believe and act on the facts, then there isn't going to be a price rise nearly as much as there would be if they did. And of course, that's why I have this channel, to convince people that silver is set for an explosive rally just based on the fundamentals. And again, a lot of people talk about when it hits the fan and doom and gloom scenarios. And I've always said that it doesn't take a doom and gloom scenario for the price of silver to explode. If you look at the price of rhodium, it went to nearly $10,000 an ounce, and there was no doom and gloom scenario. In fact, I think the most bullish situation for silver would be an enormous recovery where China and India begin to recover and grow very rapidly as well. The United States comes out of its doldrums that it's in and begins growing very rapidly. That would actually be the most bullish situation for silver, because the industrial demand would rapidly outstrip the supply, and you'd have people rushing into it as an inflation hedge, and you'd have an explosion. So I agree with George that QE is not necessary for the price of silver to explode, but that's what people are watching. And remember, it's a paper market. That's what people are acting upon, and since that's what they're watching and acting upon, then that becomes the reality. Now let's get to the main story of the night, and that's going to be a new site I want to cover. This is DR Escapes, and this is Barry Solomon's site, and he's a very interesting fellow. He's someone who's been living outside of the United States for a very long time, and has an interesting perspective. I encourage you to read his blog. I've added it to the blog And let's go over to the blog real quick here because I wanted to show you some changes that I've made. It's on the blog roll, but the blog roll is now down here a little bit further down. I've put higher up on the right hand side the recent comments because there's been a lot more controversy in the comments and arguments, so I wanted to put that where people could follow it. Also, the Tinfoil Hat Sunday story, I highly encourage you to listen to this interview with Sean Young. She's a fascinating person and quite an intellect, and you'd be really surprised how aware she is about a lot of things. Now, she tends to be kind of over in the David Icke school, and she also is a New Ager. I don't agree with her views on religion, but if you listen to the entire interview, you will be very surprised as to her knowledge about central banking, conspiracies, and everything else. So it's a fascinating interview. I encourage you to listen to that. So let's get back to the main topic, and that's going to be escaping. Now, a lot of people have criticized those who have chosen to vote with their feet. I don't have any problem with them. If you are a frequent reader of Zero Hedge, you'll see that Simon Black, who I'm going to cover here real quick, is frequently pilloried on that site. I really don't know why. I really like Simon Black and the others, but it just seems that people believe that the United States is different and that a tyranny should be fought here. I don't know. I don't know where the fighting's going on. I guess it's a war of the minds, and that's fine. But I don't plan to stay around for some kind of firefight, and I think a lot of people don't either. So here are some interesting sites, and what's interesting about Barry's opinion and his information from what life is like in the Dominican Republic is that people in America don't realize that they're the frog in the boiling pot, and they've already lost just about all their freedoms. So you can go over to SGT Report and listen to Sean's most recent interview with Barry, or you can go over here to this site, drescapes.com, and I encourage you to investigate that. Now, another site, of course, that is in a similar vein is Simon Black's Sovereign Man. I cover that on the blog roll and frequently post articles from Simon. He has a lot of valuable information. Of course, there's Jeff Berwick, the Dollar Vigilante. He's also on the blog roll, and we frequently post his videos and articles. There's also International Living. This is one I don't subscribe to, but I get information from them fairly frequently. If you're looking for new countries to move to or interesting real estate deals, this is something you can look at. This is a site that has a lot of information about moving and living overseas, especially for retirees. And then last of all, this was the first site that I actually found many, many years ago, and this is Escape from America. And I don't know who runs this site, but this site has actually been around longer than all the others. So I encourage you to visit all these sites if you're interested in becoming an expat and you decide that you would like to vote with your feet. I encourage people to vote with their feet. I encourage people to vote with their dollars. And I encourage people to vote with alternative currencies like Bitcoin or something like that. Whatever you can do by acting as opposed to voting, and of course educating others. If you are very upset, as the one questioner is, about 911, then you might want to, I guess, carry a copy of that video of Building 7 and take it around and educate people with it. Good luck with that. So the last thing I want to cover is the silver price. As you know, we're rising quite rapidly, and I have shared my concerns that we may actually get an explosive move and actually move through 50 faster than anybody can even imagine. That is quite possible, so of course we always want to stack. And tonight I wanted to go over to Tulving's site and show some of the things that he has available. They're always quoted in the price over spot. Probably the best deal on Tulving right now if you're interested in just a straight silver, would be, I would say, the boxes of the Royal Canadian Mint, the regular Maple Leafs. You can get these here. Well, these are open boxes. It's 20 cents cheaper for an open box, or you can get sealed boxes of 2012 Canadian Maple Leafs for $1.79 over spot. That's a very good price. If you want to have some type of numismatic bet, then you might want to pick up some of these Canadian Cougar Wildlife Series. You have to buy a box of 500 of those at $2.69, or 10 cents more. He's going to start shipping about September 20th the sealed boxes of the Canadian Antelope, the next one in the Wildlife Series. And I'm kind of 50-50 on that one, whether it's going to become numismatic. The only real super success as far as numismatics go for the Wildlife Series was that Wolf Series, which you still can't find anywhere for less than $60. Could be possible that the Antelope is going to be that. I think the Cougar and the other coin, the other new coin, have been around long enough that they don't seem to indicate that they're going to be a big numismatic play like the Wolf, but it might be possible that the Antelope will be. So keep an eye out for that one. We'll see what it does. Back to the silver chart, we're watching for tomorrow's action. The price looks very strong in the after hours. Again, it's always 8:30 at the New York Open. This is when the action occurs. In the last week or two, what we've seen is that they have sold off initially, and then they've been overrun and we've gone higher. So we're looking tomorrow morning to see if we have the same pattern occurring. I think there's probably about a 70% chance that we're going to make one final run on this leg up, probably to 36 or even that 37.50 before we get a major correction, and that's going to be a point when you want to stack. And we'll talk to you next time.